present strategy. As Naija UNDP representative and the UN resident humanitarian coordinator, he coordinated UN plan impacting people's lives on peace, security, humanitarian, developing and including the governance basic services, jobs, youth, women, climate, and environment. He also supported the government socio-economic development plan. As a consultant, he led many initiatives on international development, institutions in rural development, and as a benevolent causet, he was the first president of International Guarantee Fund, improving access to local finance and to Latin American and African NGOs. As a designated official, he was in the UN charge. He was in charge of UN security in Niger, and now he's in charge of Rwanda. Mr. Fodé Ndiaye wrote a book, Microfinance in West Africa, What Sustainability, and he contributed to the book, Banque et Finance. Agronomist, MPA from the Harvard Kennedy School and Mason Fellow with a certificate in public policy and management. Fodé holds a PhD from Erasmus University, Rotterdam. He also is certified in microfinance and SME finance, and he speaks well French and English. Help me welcome Mr. Fodé Ndiaye. Doctor, thank you very much for being with us today. I will now hand over to Bemi to continue the conversation and more discussion with the doctor. Thank you very much, everyone. Welcome once again.
Thank you very much. Can everyone hear me? Okay. First, can we just encourage everyone to come up and sit up front? We don't bite, so I think it would be nice if you can just come up, and those who come after, please move forward. Great. I know some students are still getting out of class, so they'll join us as they approach. But first, I also want to echo my thanks and thank Dr. Fodé for joining us today. He has an extremely busy schedule. And so I know just last week, you were hosting all of the resident coordinators here in Africa, here in Rwanda. So just to kick off, Dr. Ndiaye, can you start off with giving an overview of what the SDGs are and why should anyone care, particularly why should young people care?
Thank you very much, Bemi, for having me, and I'm delighted to be with you here. By the way, very nice facility. I wish I could go back and start off again being a student.
Never too late.
Such a nice facility, but it is never too late to learn. So let me start off by saying that one day, it was, I think, July 2014, we were about to board a plane with the president at that time, Issoufou of Niger. And I saw the ambassador of European Union, very nervous, you know, on his phone. His phone wasn't working. Say, can you help? I said, me, I maybe not can help, but I can call someone who can help. So that person gave me instruction and so on and so forth. And all of a sudden, the magic worked, and his phone was working perfectly. So he was so grateful, and he said, oh, your IT guy is very strong. I said to him, it's not my IT guy, it's my daughter. She's 11 years old on her way to school. What it does mean is really you are in charge because you are the youngsters and it's your era. The second story I always give is Max Planck. I am sure you know Max Planck, who won a Nobel Prize, I think, in 1918, because of he did a lot of work on the energy quanta and so on. So he was touring Germany just to explain what is it about. And then one day he did it with the same driver. And one day the driver said, Mr. Planck, can we try something? He said, what do you mean? He said, okay, I want to be Professor Planck, and you will be the driver. Professor Planck, for sure, we can do it. So they went to a remote rural area that have a very nice university. And of course, they didn't know Planck. So they saw the driver, welcome him, Professor Planck, how are you? Have a seat. And so, of course, the driver could explain because he memorized everything. But what they did not anticipate is that there was a young professor sitting in the first row who put forward such a difficult question because the driver was clever enough. He said, I would not expect that in such a beautiful facility, such a smart young professor could put forward such a trivial question that my driver sitting back there could answer. Of course, it was Professor Planck who answered that, and they called it the chauffeur knowledge. I'm here because I think you don't have chauffeur knowledge. You'll be solving the issues and so on. So that's why I'm delighted to be here. Now, coming to your question, I think that humanity has always struggled with how to balance the present with the future. So the first thing that we did is what we call the Brundtland report in 1987, where we talk about the sustainable development. How you, it's a kind of development that ensures that you meet the requirement of the present, but by the same token, not compromising the ability of the future generation to meet their own requirements. So that's why the issue of sustainable development came from that. Then you have many other steps, the Rio meeting in 1992. Then we have the Johannesburg meeting on sustainable development, 2002. Then you have Rio Plus 20, 2012, 2012. And then, of course, you have the MDGs, Millennium Development Goals. And in 2013, we started negotiating the Sustainable Development Goals. And we ended up signing off on the Sustainable Development Goal in September 2015 by 193 countries, the member states of the UN. Why is it important? Because these 17 goals, they are universal. They tackle all the issues. We call it always, if you can't remember all the 17, remember what I call the 5 Ps, which are important. The 17 goals are tackling 5 Ps. The people, how do you make sure that people end poverty, they have access to food, we are ending inequalities and others. Then you have the planet. How do you protect the planet? All the aspects related to climate change, land on earth, land underwater, and all those elements that consumption, responsible consumption and production and others. Then we have all the aspects related to peace, because you cannot achieve anything without peace, and that's very important, the aspect of peace. And this aspect also is related to one goal that I'm really like, is the SDG 16, where we are talking about inclusive society, strong institution, and peace and security. Then we talk about prosperity, because you cannot move the needle without having prosperity. All the goals that are related to economic growth, that are related to innovation, that are related to decent work and all this. But all this could not be achieved without partnership. Then we have also the partnership piece. I have put here all these aspects related to the goals. But to me, for me, I always say, and I said it in a conference yesterday, we are having this Africa Regional Forum on Sustainable Development. I was panelist on one on youth. This is what I said to them. One, if you wake up in 2030 and you see that goal 4 on quality education and goal 5 on gender equality are met, the likelihood that we have met the SDGs is very high. Because I strongly believe that the aspect of education is important. Of course, someone might say, okay, but how about health and well-being? You know, and COVID has taught us that is important. So that's where you have the SDGs, and they are universal, which is unlike the MDGs where we are focusing on developing countries. This one is everybody's jobs. The highest number of obesity is in the US, you know. The highest issue of some aspect COVID taught us, we have seen the rise of death in developed countries and so on and so forth. So it is important that we know really the aspect of universality. They are integrated. You cannot say, this is my SDG, I will focus on that. Because we have trade-off and leverage effect that you need to deal with. That's also something that is important. This one also is focusing on leaving no one behind. You know, COVID has taught us. We have vaccine inequity. Then you have mutation of the virus. And then it is all over. People are traveling, and then you cannot hide yourself from all this. This is also an important aspect of leaving no one behind. So you need to care, because we don't have another Earth. This is our Earth. If we make sure that it works, this is where we need to live. If it doesn't work, it is where we need to live. So that's important. And as youngsters, we end with that. As youngsters, it is important, because I always say that SDGs are not meant for me, because maybe by the time we are reaching them, I might not be, you know, either on Earth or anyway, I will not be, will be useless. But it is important for the generation like you need to put this milestone. Why also I think you need to get engaged? Because you are in Africa, and everybody is saying that Africa is the next milestone. So it is important, and 70% of Rwandans are below 30. So, you know, and in Africa, it's the same, almost the same trends, 2/3 of the population. Why is it important for you as well? Because you are at Carnegie Mellon. I hope that you have read the voluntary national review done by Carnegie Mellon on the SDGs.
Absolutely.
And that's important, and you are innovative. So I came across a way that to get engaged, like person like you, first because you are very good at problem solving. These problems are complex. We are living in an area of what we call VUCA, vulnerability, uncertainties, complexity, and ambiguity. So problem solving is important. Second that you have is critical thinking. You know, that is also an important piece of your skill in STEM, which is an important aspect. Third that you have is math and science that you are using in designing, modeling, and other issues that are important in achieving the SDGs. Then you have another aspect, which creativity. She's very strong in you, because this solution, you need to find them with creativity, designing things, and making sure that you solve concrete problems. And then the last piece I know that STEMs have also, is collaboration. Because you cannot build something in this world without collaboration. So first as youngsters, second as you have the only Earth, third as it is universal, integrated, leaving no one behind, fourth as an African, fifth, based on the skills that you have, I think that you could make innovation work for the continent and design the solution for the SDGs. And youth get engaged. UN has a youth strategy, and I can come back to that later, but I do think that we have the right power to innovate and change the world. That's what I think.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ndiaye. Next, you mentioned the importance of partnership. And so you mentioned how as an institution we can, what are some best practices in partnership that you've seen? And what are some other partnerships you think can integrate universities more with the UN agencies on how to drive these agendas?
I think partnership is critical, but usually people tend to see, at least in the developing countries, partnership as money partnerships. And to me, it's all about making friends before making funds. When you have friends, funds will follow, resources will follow. And I always say also to colleagues that focus first on people and profit will follow. If you solve people's problem, they differ. So the best thing I'm saying, partnership in my view, should be as broad as possible. First, partnership on human capital building, and that's where I see in university. Partnership on expertise sharing, this is what I see also university. Partnership on joint analysis, understanding the context, the problem, the issues. Partnership on co-creation, designing together solution that works for the people and things. Partnership in what I call, and it's also in the SDGs, South-South cooperation, triangular cooperation, developed countries, South-South cooperation, that is important in that matter. The way I'm seeing it, and example I have seen, including in your own university, if you haven't seen that, I urge you to read. There is a very good piece on what they call the 17 rooms. You know, the 17 rooms. So they have put together a variety of people, university, academia, and others in 17 different rooms. Each room has an objective to tackle one SDG. And then they mix it. What did we find? How showing the leverage, trade-off, and interlinkages of the SDGs. So that's where I see university, and it was, in my view, a good practice. The second thing that I did when I was at my former agency, United Nations Capital Development Fund, I worked with university to do 3 or 4 things that worked very well. First, on data, because big data and data themselves are important in not only in policy design, but being accountable and in transparency. That's why I like the approach of CMU, bringing the voluntary national review, because this is the international platform where countries, cities, and others have to report back. So we partner on data. What was the partner on data? We were modeling how people were not having access to finance. And we designed with FinScope. Even here they are using it on looking at financial inclusion. What are the bottlenecks? Who have access? Who doesn't have access? And what are the critical elements that we need to tackle on that? Second, based on that, we design an approach. We call it National Strategy for Transformation. I have written a piece on what was said here. And why the university was critical, because it was interdisciplinary. They brought in mathematicians that were doing modeling for us. They brought in sociologists. They were looking at the way that they understand the context, the cultural context, the social context. They brought in economists. Does it make sense to do with access to finance? What are the economic opportunities that are there to tap on? They brought in the aspect of gender, of youth. Then we designed the national strategy, and we designed a roadmap to implement by unlocking the opportunities and unleashing the potential of young entrepreneurs in tapping on these opportunities. And then the finance is a mean to an end. So the finance was used to really boost the growth. And then the fifth element was that we pushed them to innovate. Then we came up with this idea of innovative finance. How do you design finance that work for every categories of the population? So it was very powerful, because there we have a way to solve social issues, to bring in growth and economic and prosperity, to bringing in inclusion, to bring in the fact, even we brought in regional integration. How you tap on the fact that it was with Senegal and the 8 countries of the BCAO, the West African. Then we said to them, we need to change the regulation. It was through that discussion with if you know, Mamadou, if you know the context in Senegal, this is where they designed the new law on cooperative, financial cooperative. It didn't exist before. But by the way, showing what is the benefit of having this new law that will enhance regional integration, that will bring in youth, women, and then it triggered other aspects, financial literacy, youth finance. It triggered even resources. I told you, friends before funds. So MasterCard gave me 7 million for just youth to be in finance. Gate Foundation give me 10 million in my office, the regional office of UNCDF, just to move the needle of financial inclusion by bringing South-South cooperation. So I brought in BRAC. BRAC is one well-known microfinance institution in Bangladesh. I brought it, M-Pesa and the equity to build this access of technology and finance. And it created an ecosystem that was only possible because we partnered with interdisciplinary institutions such as universities.
That's great. So certainly we play a role in SDG 17 in trying to drive that. Thank you for sharing that. So over 40 years, you've had lots of interesting things go on in your career. Can you tell us one interesting story throughout your career that you think is a funny part of your job?
Yeah. Yes, totally. I don't know if it was funny, but it was one of the biggest issue I have ever come across. But I will come to funny aspect maybe later. But one day was the 13th November. Will show you how development is dangerous. I have two stories. I'll come to the first one, which is a more funny one. And unfortunately, 2 weeks ago, I came across, my story could have ended like that and you wouldn't have met me, but I was traveling in Comoros. And you know, Comoros, they have many islands, but Mayotte now is considered by France as being part of France, but they are Moélie, Anjouan, and Grand Comore. So I was there to design a project of access to finance. Then the second day after my arrival, they said to me, you know, Comoros, you need to go to Moélie and Anjouan. And we have there is a plane, yeah, so it's fine, it's awesome. Let's just take, you know, Mamadou, let's have this plane. So when I came at the airport of Grand Comore, I saw a guy with a belly like mine and the shirt was not in the pants and so on. Russian small plane, you need to open things and so on. I said, what is this? I was with a friend of mine from Madagascar, another guy a tall guy from Comoros. Then he said, this is the plane. I say, what? This is the plane? Oh, I entered. What can you do? It's already done. So I was here like this. I was between Mona, the Malagasy lady, was between me and Ali. So he took the two hands. I said, Mona, what are you? I'm playing, you know. And Ali, the tall guy, was saying, but I told Madam Maza, unfortunately, she passed away. She was the head of the RC. She was the RC in Comoros. I told Madam Maza, I don't want to travel in the other islands. Now I'm got my, caught on this end. Me, I said, does UN know that this is the plane that will be taken other security? So we took off. It was, I must say, a very nice flight. It was 20 minutes and Grand Comore and Moélie. But we landed in Moélie, and then they tried to overload the plane. So I have small words in Russian. So I saw the captain and I said, Tavarish, как поживаете? He said, когда? I said, хорошо, очень хорошо. How are you? I'm fine. And But I couldn't continue, but I saw that they were overloading. And I said, I pointed a finger to the luggage and I say, is this me out? So, but of course it was a joke because I need to come back to Comoros, to Grand Comore. And this was the only way, or take the ferry. And before us, a ferry sunk with 50 people, so what can I do? It is not. So there we managed. From Moili to Anjoua, it was good as well. But when we were taking off from Anjoua, the second day, to get back to Grand Comore, they offloaded with milk. They unloaded with milk. It was so heavy that we could not take off. We were saved by the director of Meteo, who came, he said, take it off, otherwise you are risking all their lives. So we took off, but I was sitting next to a former prime minister, and he said, you know what? Last week, the plane was about to crash. We lost, I don't know how many meters. I was so scared. But when I landed, I went straight to Madam Maza. I said, I don't know what the project will be. I can sign off, give you the money, but no monitoring from my side to Moili or Anjoua. And unfortunately, 2 weeks ago, a plane crashed, the same plane from Grand Comore to Moili, with 13 people on board. So that shows how risky development is. But it's also rewarding because we see now that people are having access in Comoros. But the most difficult day I had in my career as a UN resident coordinator was the 13th November 2013. I still remember the day. What happened that day? The Secretary General decided to come for a one-day visit to Niger with the following delegation. The President of the African Union, at that time, Dr. What is his name from South Africa? I forgot, it will come back. So then we have the President of the World Bank, Dr. Kim, the President of the African Development Bank, Dr. Kaberuka, the Commissioner of Development of the European Union, two former head of states, Buyoya from Burundi and Deputy Pumzile from South Africa. And we have 70 people, 70. The least rank was SDG Marge, who was at that time the UNDP Regional Bureau for Africa. But few days before, I needed to prepare the mission. And I went to see the Prime Minister. I said, we need to prepare this mission. At that time, Tunisia was run by a coalition between the President of the National Assembly and the ruling party, Issoufou, of President Issoufou. And he said to me, you know what? On 9 November, we will break the coalition. And we'll go through major political crisis. 4 days before the delegation landed, I said, Mr. Prime Minister, bear with me. Could you do it 2 days after, or 3 days, or even 1 hour after they have taken off? So that's why development is important when you need to build trust before difficult time. As I was really in good mood with them, he said, because of you, we'll do it. Could you imagine? Have to delay a political crisis for 1 day because I asked them to do it, but they knew what UN and the development partners under my coordination were doing for the country. So we did that. So the Secretary General was very happy. We have this interaction with the National Assembly and so on. But the funny part was I tasked my team to set up the table. As you know, people, when they don't know it, they have a list of participants. They just have seen the list of people accompanying the Secretary General. So they thought that he was the most powerful people. So they put the first young junior officers, and they put at the back the USGs like Babatunde, late Babatunde, UNFPA, like Michel Sidibé, UNAIDS, and so on. At the back, I was lucky enough. I entered the venue just a few minutes before. And I said, what are you doing? These are junior person. These are the USDs that should come forward. But it was the very difficult. And last point is I kept on asking the Secretary General to meet his team, the UN country team. Then they kept on deleting it because of the time constraint. And my team was very worried that the Secretary General comes and don't meet them. But I said to them, and I meant it. I said, I will resign if the Secretary General doesn't meet me. Because I don't think it's fair to what you were doing. At that time, Niger was facing jihadism in Mali, facing jihadism in Difa, with Boko Haram, facing issue of malnutrition. We were treating 400,000 children under 5 in malnutrition, facing gender-based violence, facing teenage pregnancy, and so on. And my team, frankly speaking, were doing a great job. So I said to them, but I was not lucky. By the time they accepted to put it, the Secretary General needed to talk to Lakhdar Brahimi, who was his special envoy for Yemen. And late Babatunde came and said, oh, Fodé did try his level best, but the Secretary General couldn't. I said, the Secretary General will meet you, believe me. So I went to the lift and I asked the security, where is the secretary? He's coming. He said, yes, he's coming. He said, but we are late. We need to go straight to the National Assembly. I said, who is doing the program? I'm the RCA here. And I asked my team to sit the area where the Secretary General should pass, sitting there. When he landed, I said, Mr. Secretary General, this way. I directed him through the UNCT. We had photos, a discussion, and others. So that shows that it's a risky development. It's a rewarding. You need to take risk. You need to take to anticipate. You need also to make sure that it is embedded in national context, because the ownership, the national development aspect, trust that you build. I always say to development partners and to UN, you have not been elected or nominated to run a given country. They have their own agenda. They have their own leadership, their own vision. We are here to support them.
Thank you. I mentioned that because some people think of roles in development or the UN as fancy diplomats and driving, like having tax breaks, and occasionally you're on a plane that may or may not land. So the idea is it's risky, but also rewarding. I wanted to touch on, we have, so right now we're in the decade of action, right? So it's 2030. And there are some people who are cynical about our chances of actually achieving these goals. And so, and as International Women's Day, maybe you can speak broadly and share what's a message of hope for people around trying to meet these targets, knowing even the derailment with COVID, and specifically what progress has been made on SDG 5.
Yeah. Yeah. First, I think we are in a good country for SDG 5. Of course, Rwanda has 61.3% of women in the parliament and 52% of women in the cabinet. And they rank 7 globally in the World Economic Forum report on gender. Of course, we should be mindful of increasing gender-based violence with COVID-19. That's why here UN is supporting Isange One-Stop Center. That is really looking at SGBV and how we trade, including for young male children, sorry, that is also there, that we need to support them in doing that and bring to. So, but I do think that we are not moving as fast as we could do on SDG 5 on gender equality. What the last report that was issued by the SDG Center for Africa, what they mentioned that we are having really progress, and it's trivial, it's on climate, because we are not emitters, you know, so it's easy on this aspect also to have it. Of course, we also are making progress in other, but for gender equality, we are not making such progress I'm seeing in Africa. And yet we portray ourselves as generation equality. You have seen on Mexico and Paris what we have done. In my humble view, what should be done for this, first for the global aspect of SDGs, and I'll come to SDG 5. I think that we have the following aspect that should be made right. One is on the financing. You know, at some point we said that we need 5 trillion really to get this SDG implemented. And yet people were saying we don't have money. But when COVID hit, even one country only mobilized what we needed globally to have it achieved. But I strongly believe that we also need to focus on the domestic resources. Of course, fiscal space is shrinking. And of course, we know debt is rising. Even Rwanda, who was very good on debt management, continued to be there, but now they moved to moderate. They were low, now to moderate, risk on debt, indebtedness. So that's also an issue. But we are supporting Rwanda in integrated national financing framework to really, really manage this aspect of it. They need to connect the dots. They have some initiative. First, they have this long-term savings schemes. They have a 10-year capital market. They have Kigali Finance. They are putting also the aspect of cashless economy, financial inclusion. We are supporting them on that as well. So let's get the financing right. This is not the case now. Let's put it. The financing rights also means that we need to bring in private sector. I strongly believe that it's a partnership. Civil society organization, academia, private sector, government, that is important in this approach that we are having. It was Dr. Zuma, the former chairperson. So that's also, that's something important. Let's get the second I'm seeing, which is in my view is important, is a quality education. Human capital. Even Rwanda, this is the case. I think that the human capital level is not matching the ambition of the national strategy for transformation. Of course, enrollment rate is very high, but the dropout rate is very high. And we are still also facing stunting, which is still very high in Rwanda. They have good plan, but it is still very high. The uptake to TVET is also not very high. So they have to connect the dots. They have big institutions like yours, they have Smart Africa, they have AIMS, but how does it translate in the normal and the district level, and so building strong human capital? Because this is where you're having the fourth industrial revolution would be based on this human capital, the innovation as the aspect. That's also something I'm seeing that we need to get it right. The third I think we need to get right is our regional integration. We have the African Continental Free Trade Area. We say it's a 1.2 billion, market. This is the largest, free zone in the world. But yet, if you look at Africa, intra-trade is 18%, whereas it's 59% in Latin America, 67% in Europe. How do we make sure that we move the needle toward having that? Because it has the potential, including with youngsters, of 3.5 trillion additional on the GDP by 2025. So this is important that we get it right, the regional integration. Fourth, I'm seeing, which is important because it's taking its toll, and we are seeing it in West Africa mainly, but even now also Central Africa, is how you have the social contract right. The inclusivity of the society, how the quality of growth will tackle poverty and inequalities. Even in Rwanda, the last figures that we have, 38.2% of poverty rate. And the last studies that was done by NASA was saying that the poverty rate has declined by 0.8%, which was not statistically significant. So we need to look at, and the next development partner retreat will be on the quality of growth and the inclusion. But also how that is important, this integration, and that's important that we look at. Six, how you tackle and anticipate threats and risk. including the security, but in the broader sense. If you are interested in that, I think I recommend you to read the Human Security, the Human Development Report of UNDP. I think it was 1994 or something like that, where you have a broader way of security. But look at here, people are putting more means in security. You look at West Africa, Mali, you have coup, Guinea, you have coup, you have Burkina, you have Chad, you have all these countries that are facing security and violent extremism. Instead, in putting it in education, in gender-based violence, in generation equality and others, they need to put it in their security. Because if you don't have security, you cannot move forward. So it's taking its toll. The stability, the peace and security aspect are very important. Now coming to gender equality, I think it is the following aspect needs to be tackled. First and foremost, I think education in the broader sense is important. We need to challenge social norms and behavior. It started at family level. You know, how do you make sure that girls and boys are offered the same equalities and the same opportunities? Education in the formal sector. How do you put more girls in STEMs? I'm seeing that here you have moved, you know, some, but it's still, we need still to do more and better. And that's also something that we need to do. Third, how do you make sure that you have zero tolerance on gender-based violence and sexual harassment? And, you know, that's also something, how you protect girls and give them also the recourse and being strong on that. Fourth, how you bring them, as I always say to people, nothing for us without us. How you bring girls at the decision level and women at the decision level, putting forward the strategies, the policies, and the accountability mechanism. Fifth, how you provide access to assets, the productive resources, and also financial aspect. That's also something important. Even in business, I was with the deputy governor of the BNR. We are supporting what we call private sector and gender seal. And on the 8th, I'm to chair the award ceremony on with the private companies. And we look at, for example, do we have facilities for breastfeeding? What are the number of leave days that you are giving to people? What are the facilities there for? How do you bring managerial? Because even that there are studies done by McKinsey and others showing that when you have women at the board level or on management level, you are increasing your return on investment. You are increasing your return on shares. And this is accepted by shareholders that they are seeing where they are, because they are caring on things that matters for them. And that's important aspect. Relating, that is also important for them. So that's also another aspect that we need to think of. Like in Rwanda, the land reform that they have done to give land property for women and others. Like other here and in West Africa, the way that they promote access to finance to women. Here we are promoting, and we start even with UN, promoting area for breastfeeding, for protecting women, for hiring. And I must say that, to be honest, I report back, we are doing well. My RCO is 80% led by competent women. Only my driver and I are men. The others are. And for the UN country team, that the RCO is based from my deliberate and affirmative action of hiring competent women. But for the UN country team, I don't have control, but it happened that we have 52% of the UN country team led by women, but they are powerful and competent women. But we need also to do beyond that, because women and girls with disabilities are the most disproportionately hit even by COVID and others. So there also we have a strategy on disability and inclusion that we need to put forward on that. So bottom line, I want to say that Rwanda is doing well. We have issues that SDGs, BVs, teenage pregnancies, and there also you can help Because, for example, we have a strong program on youth. And one of the programs is iAccelerator, where you are designing innovative way of looking at sexual reproductive health and looking at the way that you access elements that will be putting women and girls in the driving seats and promoting gender equality. But we are not doing very well globally. And COVID was not very good because women and young people were really hard hit by this pandemic. And in addition to that, they were the one who took the toll because they were caregivers. Even at family level, they were the one that were interacting with people that have the disease, or they were really highly impacted by what happened to them. And that's an area that we need. That's why we have here SDG program, even in our socioeconomic response plan with women and supporting also with fights. And but we need to do more and better. But you can count on me. I'm a he for she. I even have my tie now. What is missing, I don't know. I had the pin when I arrived. They assessed me. They said that I delivered. So they have given me the tie now. And the president here in Rwanda is one of the champions for he for she. And I think that we need to do more and better on all these issues. And I will end with that. It's not only a human rights issue. It's also a business case that we could. There was a report I was involved in some years back done by UNDP, and it has assessed that Africa, if you make the gender equality reality, it's not related only on women, but gender equality, and promoting more women on inclusion, socioeconomic aspect, and others, Africa will gain 95 billion USD annually, which is 1.5 the total ODA to Africa. So there is a business case even on that. And I told you it's a private sector as well.
Great, thank you. So before I turn over to the audience, either here in the here with us or online, I have one last question. And so what advice would you have to young people in the audience who are studying science and mathematics, engineering, as we teach here at Carnegie Mellon, on how they can get into roles that support the SDG, or how there's a, you've mentioned multiple times, there's a business case for why the triple bottom line makes sense. So what advice would you have for young people looking to get a career either in climate finance or climate engineering? What steps can they take out of this meeting to go do that?
You know, some years back, I used to be, I don't know how I can qualify it, but to be invited by Stanford Africa Forum and Harvard Africa Forum. And my theme of engaging with students was how to move back to Africa. And that was the theme of my, I think. But first thing I always say to people, career is not about money. It's about passion and what you care about. So don't choose the career because you want to make money. Of course, we all want to make money. We want to fulfill our life. But the first thing, which is the most important aspect, is what is your purpose in life? You know, if you are interested, I recommend you the Blue Zone report. The Blue Zone report has assessed in which areas in the globe we are having the average of people over 100 years that is higher than the average globally. So there is one island in the Sardinia next to Italy, and they found that the diet and the type of vine that were looking was protecting their heart. They had the Mormons in one area in the US. They have Japan, so some areas in Japan next to Nagoya, they have. So, but they look at all the things. So diet matters, where you are living matters, the environment. But there is one thing that transcends all the things. It is what they call it, plan of objectivo. What is your purpose in life? or ikigai in Japanese. What is your purpose in life? And I think that is the first thing you need to ask yourself. What would you be remembered for that you have contributed to? And I remember reading a book that was written by, I'm sure you know her, Ariana Huffington. The book is titled Thrive. So she said that until the passing away, to keep it short, I will not talk about the story of her mother because they were immigrants from Greece. But she said that before the passing away of her mother, she saw that, and before having almost a heart attack, she saw that there were two things that were important in life: power and wealth. But after these two important elements, he said caring and relating. These are the most important aspects. Caring and relating. So first, find your purpose. Find what you want to be contributing to. Second, whomever we are the product of our community, which educated us, which provided means for us to go to school. Or find a way, how do you give back to your community? That's an important aspect. Don't undermine, or don't underscore what you could achieve. The smallest thing that you could give back to your community is an important factor. Third, which is an important aspect, is we have one humanity. We cannot escape. When we had COVID, this is what we said. We are here together, we'll go out. Nobody will be safe until we are all safe. So have this sense of belonging to humanity and other aspects. Now, what comes back to career path? Once you have designed all these three aspects, in my view, which are most important one. For the UN, development is everywhere. On climate, for example, Internet of Things are important in designing, for example, sensor and looking at how you prevent disaster. Because I forget to mention that people are focusing on the SDGs, but the same 2015, we had other agreements that were as important as inclusive to the SDGs. We have the Sendai framework on disaster risk management. That's also on disaster management. We had the Addis Ababa agenda for action on financing for development. And we have the climate agreement in Paris. So first on climate, for example, the modeling, you can bring things there that would prevent disaster. You know, we know that there was a disaster, there was a earthquake, almost the same time in Japan and in Haiti. But the death toll was not comparable because in Japan, based on their modeling, based on their studies, based on what they have constructed, things that would, resilient to earthquakes, which was not the case in Haiti. So first, if you are looking at climate, first you have your Internet of Things. You design also, and I'm an engineer as well. I'm an agronomist. So at that time, we design, have your seeds that are resilient to drought. You can contribute, and FAO and others are there. IFAD, how you can contribute to the UN Convention on Climate, how you can contribute to green revolution. That is also an area where your competencies is highly needed on this aspect of climate. Climate also have the climate finance aspect. We have the Incheon, the Seoul, where we have the climate facility. And innovative finance, you can also contribute. It's not about only modeling, but you have the brain to solve problem solving, critical thinking. So I'm sure everywhere in the UN, you have the possibility to contribute. Third element I can see as well on the climate action, because you mentioned that, it's all the aspects related to emission, how you capture the CO2. And there also you have all the things that you can design, be it on the sensor, be it on the aspect of capturing the CO2, be on resilient building, or climate compliant building. Even here in Rwanda, their airport, they managed to reduce the cost by 30% because GGGI, the Global Green Growth Institute, supporting them to make the design of the airport climate compliant. We just inaugurated in Dakar the stadium, 50,000 possibilities of being seated in the stadium. But they have taken the parking to put solar. So 1/3 of the energy is coming from solar. So they are almost independent on that. Smart cities. Rwanda has a big program on smart and sustainable cities that you need to contribute there. Also, it's possible on this aspect of development. Even on gender, the aspect of gender that we mentioned, how do you brought in girls and women in STEM? How do you inspire them? How do you design curricula that are on disability and inclusion? We have just done innovation on white cane in Rwanda that is really working well. When you go also on this aspect on COVID, the first people who came from African countries were amazed to see the robot that were in Rwanda designed with a Belgium company, but UNDP support and other aspects. In UNDP itself, we have the SDG lab that is looking at how we design solutions. But that's just the part of the technical part. But it's beyond that. Development is anchoring everything that needs solution to concrete and real life people. You have your entry point. So how do you do it? I will encourage you to go anytime to what I call uncareer.org or unjobs.org. uncareer.org, you could look at all the areas that you want to contribute to. But I'm seeing you everywhere. Innovation, problem solving, critical thinking, creativity, collaboration, math and science are everywhere. From data to every. For example, Rwanda, they have their census in 2023. Important. They had the big data conference in May 2019, and Rwanda is a hub. How do you contribute to big data? Now I'm saying to people, data is not, the easiest part is looking at data as policy changes and other things. The biggest one which is coming is what unleashed the potential of big data and artificial intelligence. That is coming big time for Africa. If you now have to reap the fourth industrial revolution, you have it. So that's also areas that all the UN agencies have people like you. In UNDP, even sometimes deriving from your area to another area. I'm sure you know her, maybe she was from Nigeria. There was a young person in Nigeria leading our investment hub. I discovered that she had a PhD in pharmaceutical. And that what brought her to be leading our investment. So when she talks about investment, she knows what is it about. Some people are there on the WHO side, but then move to the whole development side. So you have your place there. But first and foremost, find your niche in your purpose, what you want to contribute to, your community. And if you look at your Vienna, they say educate, they say research, they say partnership. And that's the area also you can bring things together. But what I really want you to bring to the UN, because that's the most important part that you can bring, your creativity. You are young, don't look at all the people like me and to find solutions. It's you who can guide us. Leadership, you need to take your leadership role. What I'm seeing is UN is becoming more and more, with youngsters taking their leadership role. So you have your career path in the UN. I encourage you, because if I wouldn't have believed on the possibility of development in Africa, I would have resigned. Hope is there, but hope is not waiting for us. Opportunities are not waiting for us. As the President Kagame said during the hunger that we had last time to innovate, he said that don't wait for opportunities. You know, rush and create opportunities, and then you can build. And as you build up, doors will open. People like to be associated with success. You know, once you are successful in doing things, they will come and support and be part of. So I really encourage you. We need you. Africa needs you, not only for the Agenda 2030, but the Agenda 2063, which are congruent at 90% with the Agenda 2030. And I really encourage you. In fact, if you go to UN, you would see that many are things like that. So come and join us, and I'm sure that we'll transform the world, change it in a better way for everybody, everywhere, leaving no one behind.
Thank you, Dr. Ndiaye. A round of applause, please. So we have time for a couple of questions. And does anyone in the audience have a question? Yes, please. Please stand up and say your name. And
Okay, thank you. My name is Pameli. I'm an MSEC student here at Carnegie Mellon University. So my question is, what are the platforms that the UNDP or the UN makes available to students to give life to their innovative solutions, from a prototype to a valuable product that can be marketed in society and make impact on people? Thank you.
any other question?
Thank you, Dr. Ndiaye. My name is Hassan Gay. I'm a faculty member here. You touch upon something that I think is very important, is developing local resources. And I would like to, if you could elaborate, because I was a faculty in Senegal and we worked with farmers in Bombay. And I learned a lot from them. So how do we develop that knowledge that they have, the practices that they are using? How do we make it available for the world? And how do we leverage it to help development in our countries? Because it seems that we are forgetting those, and it looks very important to me. So could you elaborate on the development of local resources?
And we'll take one more. Some more.
Thank you. My name is Daniela Ngarambe, MSEC student. You mentioned your work with the government to reduce teenage pregnancies, but then I saw a report recently that the numbers were on all-time high for the past few years. I was wondering what is the kind of work you're doing? You mentioned working with the Sdgs Stop Center, but then could you elaborate more on that?
And we have one here.
So I am Matthias Ngong, MSIC student here at Carnegie Mellon. So my question is, you've mentioned about how important youngsters are to the SDG developments, and this is very important to most of us in this room and also online. So I would like to know what are some of the qualities? Say you are seeking to work with a group of youngsters on an SDG. What are some of the qualities you would be looking for in those youngsters that you would be recruiting? And what is a story or a time when a youngster really impressed you? Thank you.
And one last one. Yep.
Thank you so much. My name is Benjamin Mushaija Gisa, and I'm a student at the African Leadership University, pursuing Global Challenge. So I love the point of Dr. Fodé, where he talked about being young and bringing innovation. But I had a question like, in our academic studies, we are encouraged to have these innovative ideas, but sometimes taking action be on the other aspect. So how do you, as UN DP, support platforms that are encouraging students mainly who are on their ideation stage to take actions? That goes with the other question that was asked with the fellow colleague from CMU. Thank you.
Thank you all. So Dr. Ndiaye, you have the fun challenge of answering 5 questions in 10 minutes.
No, it's okay. First of all, I really want to thank you. These are very, sorry. I want to thank you. These are very interesting and challenging questions. But we are here for a challenge, no? First of all, on the platform. In Rwanda, we started a very interesting program. We call it Youth Connect. And Youth Connect started here in Rwanda. That's why I told you it's not about making funds, but friends first. Youth Connect started here with $50,000 from UNDP. Now it's a movement in 25 African countries and becoming really an implementer partner of the African Youth Charter. Within Youth Connect, we have various things that we are doing, but one which is very important is the thing that we are doing on innovation. And if you have followed on the TV, we have the hangar just some weeks back, where we put competition among young people. And I was very happy to see that a young girl, which is putting together tradition and modernity, did win the first prize.
CMU
Yeah.
student, 1 second.
Oh.
So we're
happy.
we're equally happy. So.
Yeah, so you know, that's why CMU outcome and output are very well prized by the country and the UN. So that's one platform that we had. We had all this aspect of having the hangar. So the next is coming soon. So if you have ideas, both questions, and you want to turn it out, because we'll then give you prize and we'll give you visibility. And it will give you also to move forward on your prototype and develop it. And of course, we are here also to facilitate relationship with financiers that could support, because they are part of also that movement. And every Youth Connect, the last one was held in Ghana, and we have 3,000 people physically present despite COVID, plus 4,000 connected. But the last one we did physically in Rwanda, 10,000. And also why that platform, even if it's not web-based, that one, but was good for the visibility. I remember one, Alibaba was here, Econ was here, and all this. They engage with youngsters. Another one was Drogba being here, engaging on sports and innovation and inspiring youngsters. So we have that. We also have the SDG platform. If you are interested, I can ask, there are young people, they inspired me even. They can come and discuss, exchange with you. If you have ideas that could solve development, I would be more than happy that we take your thing, because we, UNDP and other UN agencies have what they call development signatures, where you look at a problem that is in the SDGs and how you can support, finding solution to that. That's where we put up the SDG lab. And we are partnering with the Minister of ICT here. And that's very interesting. If you have ideas, this is the platform. And we have also this interactive way. I can ask the colleague. You say, when did this, these are 2 young women that were really leading our SDG lab. And when COVID hit, we were all looking how to, and these youngsters, they came up with this strong idea. of how to protect health workers. How do we make travelers easier having access to all the information? So we partnered with a Belgian company and we came up with this robot speaking Kinyarwanda, speaking French, English, and providing healthcare by bringing the, taking the temperature, bringing the food. That saved lives. I was impressed that these are young people. Me, I didn't think about it. And they thought about it. And they are in our SDG lab. So what I think would be important after this meeting, I can put you in touch. You can just bypass this old man and then discuss among yourself what you can contribute to. And we have the SDG lab. They will be more than happy to look at solutions that you want to provide. And when we have this hunger, please contribute to that. Now, Hassan, I think your question is very valid. If you look at what was presented, I have always been benevolent for NGOs. You know, I was not paid. I was just doing it because I strongly believe in local knowledge. I believe in two things that, and Bemi knows one aspect I will not disclose here. That's why I'm retiring soon in July. That's why I have this project and Bemi knows the project. But why I am interested in local knowledge? For three things that are important. One is that they know better than us the context. What works, what doesn't work. Second, they have something at stake. You, me, we are coming, flying in and out. But for them, it is their plot. It's where they belong to. They have been raised there, they will die there. So they need to find solution there. But the most important aspect is I strongly believe that development has two important components that are always overlooked. Cultural component and context component. I'll give you a true story. I have a friend of mine, he was a UNICEF rep in Peru. So they built a fancy hospital with everything. And they saw that women were coming the first 4 weeks or 2 months. But when they were about to deliver, they will never come back to the facilities. So they were worried, what's happening? And one day they were touring a village and they saw how people were giving birth. They were giving birth standing, and yet we had a bed. Because they were afraid that if they give birth laying, the child might fall and hurt or die. So based on that local knowledge, now they have that they can give birth standing. They start coming to the hospital and it should, it shot the roof to being this hospital, and the maternal mortality did fall. That's why it is important to have the local knowledge and the culture. The fourth element, which is important, change is a process, and it's about mindset. But if you don't understand the local mindset, if you don't understand their speed, their path, their understanding, it's difficult to change. I have another one. It's just a guy who didn't want to have a local dwell where you can get water. So every time we did a new one, build and dig a hole, put everything, during nighttime, he'll come and put a poison. The day after, villagers will come and drinking, they die. They say, this modern thing is not working. Let's go back to our Sean, Sean, where we put just the whole at the very low level and then drink it. That's why it is important. This stunting, even that we talk about, we have a very strong social and cultural norms. Sometimes the nutrients exist. As you know, people do not use it. We know in Senegal, I said that when you are eating, they say, don't take the head of the fish. because you'll no longer be intelligent. So there are some nutrients there that we are losing, but our culture was not there. So I totally agree with you. That's why even I told one day to African Union, I had the opportunity with the head of APRM, African Peer Review Mechanism. I said, you are not researching a lot on African leadership, management, the cultural and context and aspect. And I said, look, here we have Umuganda. But Umuganda is everywhere in Senegal, in Africa. Senegal, we call it Santane. I said to him, these are the kind of catalog that you could have in order to steer how local communities will talk to each other. If you build the SDG 16, all the SDGs should be localized, but more importantly, SDG 16, which we're talking about the communities, how they would live peacefully. So that's why I always wanted to be really involved in that. Now, not to take too much of the time, I think your question on action and his question I have answered. Now the biggest one on teenage pregnancy. You're totally right. That's also an aspect of education. And I said to Mijeprof, the minister Mijeprof, we were in a discussion, very tough discussion. And I led the same discussion at the parliament on this aspect of teenage pregnancy and others. And I said to her, I refer you to Ampateba. You know, this is a well-known philosopher in Africa who passed away in 1991. I recommend you his book. It's in French. I'm sure there are translation in English. They call it Amkulel, the Fulani child. But he said, to keep it short, we don't have time, just why I'm saying education. He said that if you take the most powerful person in Paris, Le Comte de Paris at that time, and the poorest Fulani in Mali, then you take the child of the most powerful, the Comte de Paris, and take it to the poorest family Fulani in Mali, and take the child of the poorest family in Mali and send him or her to Paris, to the Comte family. And you come back 20 years after. Whom do you think will resemble to be a Comte? The Fulani child, because he has been raised in a family where people behave like a Comte. And the guy who was born as a child of a Comte or a noble family will become, you know, like a herder, you know, with this. So why I'm saying so? We need to start as early as possible. But what we have done, and sorry to say that to youngsters, we have delegated our education to social media. That's the issue. When we grew up, and he knows that, we have been raised, Bemi knows that, we have been raised by our community. There are things you cannot do. Even if your parents are not here, you will not do it. You will say, oh, this is the my wife, my dad is watching, my aunt is watching. But with social media, we have delegated. And sometimes it's not the same culture, it's not the same norms, it's not the same principle and values. So teenage pregnancy is a very important component in education that we need to deal with on social norm, on culture. Second, awareness raising. You know, in many aspects, we need really to have, and that's why Youth Connect I was referring to, we have what we call hangout, where young children talk to themselves. 4 million young children in Rwanda cumulatively talk to themselves to discuss. We have peer also mentoring, when you can talk to others how they went through that aspect and how they went. And fourth, and I will end with that, we need really strong, and that's happening in Rwanda, to criminalize more than ever what's happening. And it's the case in Rwanda. They are very strong on that. RIB is doing a good job. And of course, COVID was not helpful, because when you lock people in the same vicinity and all these things, they are not doing anything. Sometimes what happens is You know what I mean? And that's something also we need to deal with. But we need culture, we need policies and strategies, we need law enforcement, we need the security, and that's why also you have a role there, because Rwanda, they have integrated electronic case management system where you can file, and we are supporting them to update it. And there also you have a role. But I need you. And as intern, as contributors, as whatever, I was very proud. I will end with that on what you mentioned, action. I was very proud of a youngster who I can show you email, I will show it to Bemi WhatsApp exchange. He brought to us something very special, because he was one of the first, if not the first intern with disability within UN. And I was about to, there is a special envoy of the Secretary General, Novu, you know him from South Africa. He's graduated from Oxford, and he cannot even move. But that person that we have helped us figure out how to navigate our compound. So we designed a way to have wheelchair access. And Novu called me, he said they want to come and discuss with me. I said, fine. But I didn't know, on the phone, it's a blind, you don't know that he has this very, very difficult way he was moving in. But with this intern, we have designed at least the access to. When he arrived, he was with Handicap International. The guy came, I hope you have a way that, because Mr. Ndovu is on wheelchair, it could have been the shame of my life. So having people like that, and he graduated, when he graduated, send me a message, I was your former intern, now I graduated. And he has a very high disabilities. But disabilities is not inability, as we always say.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ndiaye. A round of applause, please. To quickly wrap up, as I know people have class at 2 o'clock, I just once again want to thank Dr. Ndiaye for making time today. As you heard, we live in a VUCA world where things are very complex. We all have a role in contributing to the SDGs in terms of what skills youth need to have. You need to be innovative, resilient, creative in how you look at these solutions. Think about friends before funds, and also think about what your life goals are. And so if you think through all of these, we hope you learned a lot. And there are different ways through SDG Connect, participating in the Hanger Fest, and in Youth Connect and SDG Hub, that you can be engaged in looking for careers in the United Nations or in any development aspect that you're looking for. So thank you all so much for coming. We're going to do a group photo before everyone runs out, and then we'll let you grab your lunch and then go. Dr. Ndiaye?
Yeah, it's just to thank you again, but don't look at yourself as employers, but as employees, but as employers. The Youth Connect, we trained 800 youngsters. They created 8,000 jobs. So leverage 1 to 10. And all these big company, 10 people have created them. They were below 25. So I count on you, care, relate, participate, connect, and do whatever it takes to give back to your community, to contribute to the change and transformation. This is the only way that we build humanity, a better world for everyone, everywhere. You have the power. Don't ask me any question. Go and look at the problems, find solution that matters for all of us. Thank you very much.